right, so now I want to learn how to build a rule where I am working basically with 3 cubes at once so that they can talk to each other to pull out the information I need so that I can get the result I want.
Right. Okay, so let's start on a high level. So we need target currency and local currency and the exchange rate. So we saw this in the report. So our rule should have the target side, the euro. And on the source side, we have the local currency. So this is the guy, also this is where the value is really stored, and we want to divide it by an exchange rate. So, and in the previous lesson, you mentioned this already. So the exchange rate is not in this, but in the same cube. So we have to dig into the database somewhere and try to find out where is our exchange rate. And we saw that it's a separate cube. It's the exchange rate cube, and you request data from a cube like on a paste view with Palo data.
Okay, so, wait, then let me back up a little.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, this first thing we see just explains what are we looking for, the second one. So I've defined the target currency I want to see in euros, and then it's going to be the local currency divided by, and then here this is just a theoretical fixed exchange rate.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And we want to replace this fixed exchange rate now with a dynamic exchange rate. So the next one is now really to use Palo data in our rule to go to the exchange rate cube and go there in this cube for this little value. So it's definitely there's a cube behind. So we need coordinates. So the next building block is to see now, or to go into this cube in detail. So the exchange rate cube has some dimensions that are shared with our sales data cube, and some dimensions are not shared.
Okay.
Let's focus for the moment at the dimensions that are shared. So month and version dimensions. So they are in both cubes available. And when you have shared dimensions, you can use so-called current member notation as the reference or the coordinate information. So you don't have to add the element hard-coded. So you can use exclamation point and then the dimension name in single quotes. This means from, for example, when you come from the month 2016-01, the current member notation knows, okay, the cell where month 2060-01 is requesting, I have to go in my exchange rate cube to the same month element. And for the version, it would be the same. So from the sales data cube, a request to the exchange rate cube where the dimensions are shared, you can use the current member notation to really point to the exactly the same elements from where the request is coming from.
Okay.
Let's go to the next building block. So if we fill now all coordinates of the exchange rate cube for this particular sample database, we have again the month and the version included, where we use the current member notation, but there are also elements available that needs to be hard-coded, because, for example, there's the term average. So this is the type of the exchange rate when it has been stored. So average or month end. So it depends a little bit on which data you want to transform. So when you work with general ledger, for example, you have an or profit and loss data needs to be converted differently. So you can decide here, I want to have the average of a complete month, for example. So 2060-01, for example, the average exchange rate. Or there's another element, exchange rate, really to define this is an exchange rate. Could be also some other information you can store in this cube. And you have the source and the target currency, US dollar and euro, for example, here. And this is exactly now the little thingy where we are working with the attribute cube now, because if I hard code US dollar and euro, I would always convert from US dollar to euro.
And that's not going to be accurate in every case.
Correct, yeah. Especially when we go for Bikers Best from China, we need actually the other currency. So with the next building block here, we are going to replace the hard-coded US dollar coordinate in our Palo data formula with another Palo data, actually. So this is the request now to the third cube. In this case, it's the #company. It's the attribute cube of the company dimension. And there we are asking for the currency, the attribute field currency. And you see again a current member notation, the exclamation point company. So from the Bikers from the Best Bicycle USA, for example, or from Bikers Best China, depends on which company is requested. The current member notation knows, okay, it's Best Bicycle USA. Then it checks for this company's currency attribute and gets US dollar back, or it's the CNY for the Biker Best China. And then we have a fully dynamic rule available, and everything is then used to be divided with the currency LC, and then we can store it on the currency euro.
Yeah, so it makes sense to me. It's easy to find. So my target is euro, and setting up the LC. And the interesting part is after the division symbol, where I'm using the Palo data formula to access this exchange rate cube, and then within that Palo data, I access the attribute cube so that I can find what is the local currency, and that works. Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and in the next lesson, we are going to build this with the rule editor.
All right, sounds good.